Yay!
Gorilla.
I push rhymes like weight. I won't be pushing weight here for a minute though.
Tell the folks why,
dude. So, I love just being a meathead in general. Like I love just thinking you can do stuff that you can't do.
You know, like I guess tell your story, and then I'll talk about my mental thought process through it, and then what I thought, and then what I actually saw.
Well, there's not much of a story at all. I got ambitious and impatient and stubborn, a mixture of all three of those, in trying to move a big screen TV that I've been trying to. It's like one of those. It's kind of an older version of a big screen TV. It's not new, and I just contacted one of our therapists, the great and wonderful Ryan Stokes, and I just asked him if he had a need for a TV in his office, and he said he did. So I just was going to go drop it off at one of our offices for him, right? But when I moved it, I didn't have any help, and so I thought, and not that it's your fault. I texted you and you were busy, obviously, and so I was like, well, I could just do this by myself, because in my mind I'm thinking, okay, how much could this possibly weigh? And if I can just get a good grip on it, the shape of it is irrelevant. I can move this thing, right? And so I actually got it because in our office we have that flight, and then there's like that bottom part, and then it goes up another flight to get into our office. So I got it at the first flight, but I had to set it down because it was slipping, and set it down. And even then, like looking back on it, I'm just such an idiot. So a nice guy he got out of his car and saw me doing this, and he's like, hey, do you need some help? And I was like, I think I got it. Oh. And and then I tried to pick it back up, and then when I tried to pick it back up, it sounded like if you took, those if you took those, this is what I've come to the conclusion, the wrapping bubble paper, and then twisted it, and then you hear about like all these little pops. And it hurt really bad. And I felt it immediately right in the crick of my elbow. And then I was like, oh, that's probably nothing. I tried to pick it back up again. My arm's like, no way, bro. So then I was done. And I was like, uh-oh. And I go, and luckily there was a group happening at the time. So I was able to, get a couple of clients to help me carry this into one of our group rooms, and there it lays. And so that was Saturday. Now, I don't know if this had anything to do with it. I just rode 60 miles on a bike, and I hadn't eaten anything for 26 hours, not 1 calorie. So there was that too. But I was going to get to eating later as soon as I moved this TV because I was being impatient, right? I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
Couldn't have helped.
My energy was sapped. And then after that, I was like, okay. And I contacted you immediately because you've torn both of your bicep tendons before. And I sent my doctor a message on, the app that you can contact your doctor on. And I just was kind of like, because everything I looked at on every website, and maybe I was just seeing things the way I wanted to see them, which was, all you can do is take, anti-inflammatories and rest and ice, right? So then my doctor called me last night. This would have been Sunday. No. Sunday night he called me. So on Sunday evening. So 2 days ago. And that morning, so the next morning, I still went and ran 10 miles, and then I swam 2,900 yards, okay, with this ruptured bicep tendon that I now know exists. And then he called me Sunday night, which if your doctor calls your house on Sunday night, it was 9 o'clock too. And he's like, hey, I'm in the clinic. Tell me about, and he's super cool. Dr. Stephen Sharman, shout out. So then I contacted them yesterday, Monday, and I just said, hey, I got to get in. My doctor said I need to get in. So today they confirmed it that I did rupture my bicep tendon. So it's kind of hanging by a thread, the doctor said. So surgery tomorrow at 2. Super cool. But I will say though, I'm in the middle of Ironman training, and I have not had a cool Ironman story other than during one of my Ironmans during the swim, I had bronchitis and couldn't breathe and had to drop out during the swim. That's it. Not like our buddy John, who like collapsed the lung and finished the damn thing. So now, to me, this is just going to be a cool story. I get to train with a ruptured bicep tendon. But here's the cool thing about this, though, because by the time I'm done and the Ironman's over, I'll be getting them gains again back in June. So I'll be good. I'm good. I feel like this is
honestly, I'm not just like I'm genuinely impressed that you're not just a depressed wreck and that you're looking at it this way. Like you said, I've done it twice, and the first time it was a full detachment. The bicep rolled up into my shoulder. It was like a reverse Popeye look. And the second time it stayed attached. Oh God. The second time it stayed attached kinda. And so that's what I'm guessing kind of what you have is this partially ruptured. And the bubble wrap thing. Yep. I used to like try to compare it to maybe like really sticky Velcro. And oh man, I don't know. It like, good on you for actually not just taking your ball and going home, bro. Well, because that it's.
I mean, yours. So, okay. Now, I might be singing a different tune if the doctor told me I wasn't able to run and I wasn't able to keep riding, and he told me I could. The only thing I can't do is swim, for obvious reasons, right? But I mean that's one that I can make up relatively quickly. Before
when's Ironman?
June. But I've been swimming like crazy already. I mean, I'm fine. So I'm in good shape for it. I'm ready to go. So, and what I figure I'll do is I'll just, on the days that I'm supposed to swim, I'll just do extra runs and extra bikes. I'll be fine. So, I mean, if they told me that, I'd be way more depressed. For you, I understand it because, lifting and jujitsu, that's just how it is. Dude, can you imagine if you're the first time listener, you listen to this and you're like, these two meat-headed losers, like, which is totally true.
Yeah. I don't think it's just the first-time listeners. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. The amount of eye rolling that's happening right now. Yeah, they're gonna rupture their eye tendons.
Yeah. Oh, damn. Yeah. Well, anyway, I think it's badass that you're.
Yeah, no.
Pushing forward.
It'll work itself out just fine. So yeah, surgery tomorrow. I was disappointed though because I have to cancel my classes tomorrow, and I wanted to go teach. And I was like, "Hey, can I teach after and they're like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, it's just surgery. I mean, I'll wake up, I'll be all right. I'll get some caffeine in me. I'll go back to it." And they're like, "No. You won't be able to function." And I'm like, "You don't know who you're talking to." I was like, dude, I'm so dumb when I think this. I'm like, I need to not hear what you tell normal patients. I need to hear.
I'm special.
Yeah. I'm just like.
Do you know who you're talking to?
Dude, and they were asking, and the doctor, he was actually really happy with me because it was like, "Hey, can you not prescribe me any opiates?" And he's like, kind of taken aback by it. And I was like, "Oh yeah, all right." He's like, "Well, yeah, we kind of want you to take Tylenol." I was like, can I just take meloxicam? He's all, "Oh yeah, that works too." And he's all, "Do you mean to prescribe it?" I was like, "I already got some." I was like, "I'll just take that. That's all I need." And I was like, "I hate opiates." So he's like, "Oh yeah." And then he told me about this, I don't know if he hasn't done this, I assume, but they've done blind tests where they just give you Tylenol 500s and opiates, and like people in terms of pain interpretation will not know the difference if they think they're I was like, "Wow, look at you." Okay. I was like, "Nah, I don't need those opiates. If I go through pain, I feel like I deserve it for being a dumbass trying to carry that TV."
It's supposed to teach you a lesson.
Yeah. I did get it far though.
Dude, here's the thing. So like when you were talking about it, I don't know why it didn't compute, because like you told me it was an older flat screen. But I was still imagining, I was thinking of a sizable one, but I was thinking maybe it's like maybe 40 pounds. And then I saw it this morning when I walked in, and he was like, what the hell were you thinking, dude? Like, what were you even, I don't even know how you thought you could get your arms around it. That thing was huge. And it wasn't just a flat screen. It had like the big ass back on it.
I know. I don't know what I was thinking either, but you win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
Bird in the hand's worth two in the bush.
Yeah.
So
Win in Rome.
Win in Rome. Yeah, that's cool. Well, so yeah, man, this podcast topic was your idea, right? So tell me about it. What happened here?
So I was Miss Candice Owens. Is it Owens or Owen? Owens. Yeah.
Yeah.
So across my feed, I saw a pretty provocative title. It's like, what is it? How therapy is ruining Western civilization. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
How therapy is ruining Western civilization. Talk about if you're a therapist, that's some solid clickbait.
Yeah.
It got me.
You'd want to be like, what?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I had to listen, and I find myself conflicted as I listen to her points. There's definitely some parts I want to push back on that I think maybe I don't, as we get into it, we'll see, but I don't think she has a fully comprehensive understanding of what happens in a therapy office. She has some stereotypical beliefs, and, stereotypes often exist for a reason. There's, a hint of truth to some of it. And so some of the trash she's talking on therapy, I caught myself reluctantly nodding along, but there's some shit in there too that like, I think she's a little off base on.
So would this be our first official, what do they call it?
A reaction video.
Well, we've done a reaction video to a documentary.
Yeah.
But this is a reaction video to, is this like a response video?
That might be the word.
I don't even.
Oh, wait, I don't
that's
know.
how dumb I am. I don't even know what it's called.
We don't even know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're,
I need to
we're not responding. Like
No.
if she sees guerrilla
she's never
social
gonna.
work,
Well, actually, that'd be amazing if
right?
she did see it. Yeah.
Candace, you got to do a response video
Hashtag
to our
Candice
reaction
Owens.
video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Candace, please talk crap on us.
Yeah,
please,
trash us.
Please,
Yeah.
yes. Look at my face. Okay, there's plenty of material. Just there's plenty to make fun of and talk shit about. Look at this guy. Jeez. Look at us.
I'm a ginger. I got floppy ears. You can't see it. There we go.
We're worthless in so many ways.
Yeah.
So anyway,
come at me, bro.
Okay, so we're gonna watch this, and we'll at least watch her opening monologue and then respond to it. Right.
Right.
A couple of points on there. Okay. All right. Well, let's fire this old boy up. Let's see what Miss Owens has to say.
So I said yesterday to my team that I want to talk about therapy, group therapy, familial therapy, couples therapy, all of it, because I have this idea that
A lot of emphasis on the why there.
it's ruining Western civilization. I really do. I think that is true.
Oh, wait. Hell no.
No
That was
sooner
like
did
a good tagline. Sorry, Candace.
More strong. All that and more today coming up on Candice Owens.
Oh, too far back. Okay. Sorry, everybody. We'll just hear it from the top. Come on, stage crew.
Yeah, stage crew.
So I said yesterday to my team that I want to talk about therapy, group therapy, familial therapy, couples therapy, all of it, because I have this idea that it's ruining Western civilization. I really do. I think that is true. No sooner did I say that than did somebody tweet this morning. I'm going to share this tweet with you. They tweeted, men publicly expressing vulnerability is a net negative and ideological cancer to rob you of your inherent strengths, and it destabilizes the world. Such people are not to be taken seriously that promote this. In response to this tweet, Gina Bontempo says, the very thing that makes men both amazing and attractive is their ability to not be vulnerable in public. Strong. It's definitely a very strong statement. And some people might think that it's too strong because it's true and people don't like hearing the truth. But there's no question that therapy has rendered not just men weaker, by the way, I would say, but women weaker as well. I think it kind of became a millennial thing. I think we started this trend that it made you brave and it made you strong if you talked about how not brave and how not strong you are. This is sort of the it's okay to not be okay thing, something that was thought up probably by some psychology majors and some people that graduated and said, you know what, I realized it's okay to not be okay. And you sort of feel like people are going into therapy and they're actually becoming worse people, likely because their therapist is telling them that literally everything they do is okay and can be understood, right? As long as you talk about all the bad things that you're doing and all the bad things that you're feeling, then it's all right. It's totally fine. You are a better human being for it. And we know that isn't true. I guess probably the most prime example in recent memory being Prince Harry, who has quite literally sold out his family for.
So like that is kind of the cliche that gets talked about is that, in therapy, it's, express your feelings, talk about your feelings, show vulnerability, vulnerability is strength. And
by the way, that word vulnerable and vulnerability, we need to retire that soon. I'm so sick of hearing that
because of
word.
The overuse.
Yes. But anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
It's and look, and some of that stuff that Miss Owens is kind of talking trash on has come out of my own mouth. I've a lot of the guys that we work with are rough around the edges, and they kind of are raised in that old school, suck it up type of mentality. And, these guys often just bottle stuff up and don't talk about things. And, when I try to tell them, the value of like opening up and, expressing your emotions, that it can be a relief and it doesn't make them weak. There's often a lot of pushback from these guys. They don't want to be seen as weak or a certain way. And so I have kind of made the point that Candace is making here, that she's, I guess, talking trash on. But at the same time, like this is where I don't have these thoughts fully fleshed out. And this is kind of what I was wondering with you. Like, do you agree that talking about feelings and expressing vulnerability is a positive thing, male or female? And if so, like exclusively, or like, do you feel like there's some wiggle room for like moderation or like a time and place, or, maybe context, maybe just expressing yourself, just vulnerability, just like to the max?
Like I'm like vulnerability expression uber alles all the time.
Right. That's what yeah.
So just to the direct question, yes, I do think there is some value in expressing emotions and being, well, not just, well, kind of what we teach about when we're, working with our clients through emotional regulation, right? Is simply admitting I'm experiencing an emotion and then identifying which emotion that is, and then choosing an appropriate emotional regulation skill to combat that emotion. Okay. I do think that's important. And the reason why I think it's important is because I'm ill-equipped to deal with the emotion unless I have identified what emotion exactly it is that I'm talking about and which one I'm experiencing and to what degree. So, I mean, how many emotional regulation techniques do we work through with our clients? 20, 30, somewhere around there?
We're talking about module 4.
Right. Yeah. All of module 4, right? And we kind of focus on ones that we know inherently will lead to poor behavioral decisions. Okay. So whether it's dealing with anxiety or dealing with anger or dealing with hostility or, or dealing with rejection,
criticism,
failure, right? These are really strong emotions that if a client has a history of managing poorly results in bad behavioral decisions that can hurt him or somebody else, or result in criminal behavior. And that's why I think it's important to identify them. Now, to your second part of your question, yes, I think context is important and time and place is important, because ultimately, what do I want a client to do? I want to move them away from emotions and move them into thinking rationally. Okay. I don't want clients making decisions based on emotions. Our emotions are the worst, decision makers of all time. Anybody who's making emotionally based decisions makes horrible decisions. I want clients thinking logically. I want them thinking rationally, and I want them thinking in a self-interested way. Okay. That doesn't lead to harm to another person. But I can't get them there if the emotions are so dramatic and so overwhelming that it clouds their judgment. And so a time and a place to express that and talk about that doesn't necessarily have to be with a therapist. I assume, Miss Owens with her significant other, I think she has a husband. So it'd be Mrs. Owens, right?
That's right.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what to call
Them's the rules.
I don't know what to call anybody anymore. Yeah. With your significant other or a trusted friend, or if you have a therapist, great, do that there. Okay. One more thing that I think I agree with her on. I do not like this attitude that all of us are somehow broken in some way, and all, this, it's okay to not be okay. Just these, you know how I feel about these cliches that don't really add up to anything other than somebody hears this and they can make this noise.
Bumper sticker therapy.
Yeah. And that's really all it amounts to. It's not even a full affirmation. It's just somebody nodding and, that's what happens. People hear that.
Why do you think that caught on? Kind of almost the glorification of it's okay to not be okay.
I don't know. I don't know where, I don't know why that has been, how that has any capital behind it, why that would matter, and why that's a necessary component. It's certain. I don't, to be for example, I lament all the time this supervision training I had to attend, and one of the things that they mentioned in there was, we all bring our, I was talking, we all bring our own trauma to the sessions that we do with clients. I'm like, wait, what? I was like, that's a bold statement. We all bring our own trauma.
We all.
I don't know first of all, I don't know what that means. We all bring our own trauma, and it's so loose in its terminology. It's just one of those things, again, that it's hard to disagree with because it's so intangible that I don't even know what the counter to that would be. You know what I mean? Yeah. Have we all gone through bad shit in our life? Well, of course we have. We've all gone through bad shit in our lives. I don't know if that means I bring trauma to a therapy session. And also this, that all therapists should also be seeing a therapist. I've heard that before too.
Thing. Yeah.
All.
Right.
Chill. I don't understand why that would be necessary.
Yeah, it's if there's an identified need to resolve something or work through something as a therapist, it makes a lot of sense to go get help. Mm-hmm. The other cliche that is tired but kind of makes sense is the whole hurt people thing. So there is benefit to, if I've got some shit to work out, and it's if a loved one of mine dies and I've got some grief and I'm dealing with it and it's bleeding out all over my clients during session, it's responsible for me to get that worked out behind the scenes with a therapist of my own. But just kind of this overarching prescription for all therapists to be in therapy, implies, well, what does that even imply?
Well, have you ever talked to a therapist before?
Uh-huh.
Just you and a therapist?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I was working my way. So I had like a bunch of test anxiety before the freaking clinical exam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so like, so I used to have this thing called myocardial syncope. And
that's a thing?
Yeah.
Google it, everybody.
Myocardial syncope.
What is it?
It's my heart stops.
Your heart breaks when you.
I just get really sad and I get vulnerable and then I pass out.
you have a test coming up and you're teacher. I can't take this test. My heart is broken.
Yeah. I could get a doctor's note saying that. But like basically what happens is like, like a lot of times the stimulus is something psychological, but makes me anxious, or if it's something that I've thought about before, like some kind of shit happens in my head, and like my I have like extreme vasodilation. The blood drops out from my hand. Boom, out I go. And it's probably happened to me first when I was like 5 years old. In the lunch line, which was cool. And then it's probably happened maybe 10 more times throughout my life. So like not super frequent, but like maybe like once every couple of years. And I just pass out. And
has it happened lately?
No,
okay.
The therapy freaking worked, dude.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
it really did. And it was the weirdest. Remember how I was on an NLP kick for a while?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because of that dude, man. I took a class at the U, but then I also went to this guy named Larry Jacobson. I don't know if he still practices, but yeah, he did. It was kind of like hypnotic, like anxiety reducing things. Like, you know, it'd like calm me down, chill me out. And then he'd give me these like guided imagery things to use in my head when I was getting myself ramped up. And it's like the hokiest sounding shit, but it worked, man. And yeah, so I went to him for like a few sessions just to like deal with that. Like, I mean, the pre-test anxiety is what got me in there, but it was kind of deal with this weird lifelong thing of me passing out. Wildly inconvenient to pass out when you don't have control over it.
Yeah.
But dude, yeah, it worked.
I love it. I was like, yeah, I still pass out maybe once a year, but it's usually because
you're not sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sleep is such a waste of time.
Yeah. It really is though.
Dude, I love it.
It's like a third of your life, bro.
I was talking about this the other day and I love how people are like, dude, I love sleep. And I'm like, do you? How do you even know
you're
unconscious?
Yeah.
How do you even know? You know, there's one time when you can enjoy sleep and it's like when you, like if you wake up to go to the bathroom and then you lay your head down and for like 20 seconds before you fall back to sleep, that is nice.
That's pleasant.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's it.
That must be what they're referring to.
You don't really like sleep. I mean, and really, if 4 hours of sleep does what 8 does, why would you waste those other 4? You're leaving money on the table, son. So now my body says things differently, but it's usually just it's like a hard reset, you know. Video game systems, computers have to do that every now and then. Why not the human body?
Blow out the Nintendo cartridge.
Yeah, dude. I only see. This is my thought on this. And I mean, I don't consider myself like super tough or anything, but like I saw a therapist twice, and I don't know, in terms of traumas, I feel like mine's a little bit up there. Even though I don't look at it as being like traumatic as if I was the victim, because I witnessed a murder, right? So when I was younger, there was I was a supervisor of this like independent living home, and as I was coming back to this home, you know, the kid who had just had stabbed and mutilated the other staff was running out of the home, right? And we're like, what the fuck, you know? Kid gets in the car, he's covered in blood, he drives down the street, rams into a house, and then myself and another staff, we go into the house. He was there a little bit before me. We go in there and she's in there all messed up. Her neck's cut. There's blood everywhere. It's horrible, right? And this, can you think of anything worse than that? Actual horror movie stuff.
And you weren't you like pretty close to her, at least knew her, like on a friendly, like
right.
Yeah.
We worked with her, right? And he called 911. It seemed really desperate because at the time there was not much we could do. They just told us put a towel under her neck. The paramedics got there before the police got there. That was a thing in and of itself. I mean, it seemed like it took forever. I have to imagine it was like 1 minute or so. Everybody was there fast. But the paramedics wouldn't even come in the house because they didn't know if we were the ones who did it.
Oh, shit.
Because we were also covered in blood and stuff like that. And then in come the cops. They beat us up a little bit. Not like bad or anything. But, of course, they didn't know either whether or not
For all you knew, you were the dude.
Right. And then they leave, and they take her out of there, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness, she's gonna get to the hospital, she's gonna be okay. Later on, we found out she died, right? And I'm like to myself, like, of course, you always get into like, well, what if I could have been there, should have been, all this other stuff, right? And I was messed up for like 2 or 3 days, didn't know what I was supposed to do. And our boss at the time, super cool. They got some crisis workers there, and some of them were therapists. They were meaningless to me. I mean, looking back, and maybe it was because, I mean, I was just so amped, I didn't know what was going on. But they were inexperienced. Some of the stuff that they were saying just didn't
land with you, huh?
Nah. Okay. And you know who made the difference for me? There's 2 people who made the difference for me. Neither of them were therapists. So one was my criminal justice teacher. His name was Dr. Wadman. He was super cool because I went and talked to him, and he's been through all kinds of stuff, right? He was a chief of police and all this other stuff, and he just told me some of those things. And he was telling me how, you can't let this define yourself. You were exposed way too early to something you shouldn't have been exposed to. And he said some other really cool stuff. And then our friend Alan, Alan, he's one of the most unemotional dudes you've ever met in your life.
Absolutely.
Right? And him just, I don't even remember what he said to me, but he said a couple of things to me, and after that I was like right as rain. And I really didn't have many problems after that. So I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I feel in the grand scheme of traumas, I feel like I had something, and a therapist did not help me at all. One of my best friends did, and a professor that, I think he passed away. So R.I.P. Dr. Wadman. But he helped me, and that was the end of it. And I even got really mad too because I was super close to it, and I didn't want to talk to anybody about that because I didn't want to draw. I've always struggled with taking attention away from, her family, for heaven's sake.
You're feeling like if you make your traumatic reaction known far and wide, that it's going to be perceived like you're making it about you.
Right. I mean, I took a week off of school, 1 week off of school. Right. And I went back to practice and everything. And I remember, there were students that were taking the rest of the semester off that just knew her. And I was like, well, hold on, dude, I was there, bro. Come on. You know what I mean? And I guess everybody interprets these things differently. And I know I have a heart of darkness, but
both those things are true.
But my intention was, why would I make this about me when really the people who deserve attention and anybody's emotional, capital to support them is her family? They need that. Why would I try to steal any of that?
Well,
that's where my mind went.
No, I get it. Yeah. And I mean, you'd probably, if a client of yours was making that argument, you might have different words for him, but this is your internal experience. Kind of to the point of vulnerability, I know how you and Alan talk to each other. There's definitely not by any means, I'm trying to say it without being a dick.
If you weren't, if you didn't know that we were friends, you would think we're about to fight.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. That is a great way of putting it. Yeah. But maybe to a level, do you remember whatever that buzzword vulnerability looks like? You must have given off something that led Alan to have those right words for you.
Oh yeah. Of course, I was really upset and crying and all that other stuff. Just because I didn't know, I did not know how to think about the situation. And again, a big part of me was like, oh geez, if I just could have, which is such stupid thinking, you know what I mean? But again, these are all emotionally charged thoughts, which we want to move clients out of,
Right.
And having a support person.
What were those thoughts? The emotionally charged thoughts?
If I had been there, could I have stopped it? Right? If I had been there, would I have gotten in the way of it and tried to, and again, it's just hero shit, like meathead shit. Like, oh yeah, you could stab me and I could have taken.
Right.
Dude, if you're fighting a guy with a knife, what you do is you slam the knife and then take it out. I'm like,
you're going to get stabbed.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's that dude on Napoleon Dynamite? The
Rex Kwon Do.
Yeah. Stuff like
Grab
that.
my wrist, my other wrist, the other hand, whatever. Yeah.
Stuff like that goes through your head as if you and maybe I could have, but what nonsensical thinking that I mean, woulda, shoulda, coulda, man. Like I mean, the tragedy is that unfortunately somebody who's completely innocent, did nothing wrong, had to lose their life because of probably some other really bad emotionally charged decisions on the perpetrator's end, the murderer's end, right? He made some really, none of that was very logical, all based on emotions, and wrapped up in his own, arousal and whatnot. So that's where all that came from. And so, I just honestly, and it came back to that. This was like, do you remember not too long ago? We know the exact time when it was, when Sandy Hook went down. And there was what was it? One of the victims, the families, he graduated from Ben Lomond High School. I
forgot about that.
And then what happened was,
that's right.
There was a fundraising campaign where people went there and set up shop and sold their products, right? Vendors. And I was like, dude, okay. His daughter was killed. His kindergarten daughter was killed. And I get you're giving them the money. I understand. You're also marketing your business. And that's disgusting to me. That's disgusting to me that you marketed your business. I know you're giving them the money. Just give them money then. Or don't say anything. Just keep walking. Okay. I struggled with that big time. Like, and I wanted to go there and say something because I was mad that had happened.
Well, is this kind of like to the point here? Are you making the point that that's like a form of emotional grandstanding a bit?
I guess I don't know. I don't want this to be about me, obviously, but I'm saying I struggle when people take the tragedy of another person and make it about them. I mean, what happened to me in that circumstance pales in comparison to what that poor girl's family was going through. I mean, come on.
For
like,
sure.
what do I matter at that point? You know what I mean? And that really, nobody said that to me. Nobody's like, what do you matter, pussy? Like, nobody said that, and I never thought that. I was just saying, geez, who cares about me? And why should they? And geez, why am I trying to suck up all the emotional energy and attention on this? Which I wasn't trying to do that, but I was like, ugh, it's icky even thinking about it.
Dude, okay. So like that might be kind of the time and place that we're talking about here. And that like, even though you were feeling all kinds of horrific things, you made a decision about when and where to open up about it, contingent upon other environmental factors. It wasn't just a free flow belching of emotional energy because you needed to feel that right then and right there. And because I think that like what she's talking about might be some of that.
Yeah.
It's just unmitigated emotional release without concern for time, place, context, the impact on other people. And like, in fact, I think that's what she even gets into here. But I just wanted to circle back around. I didn't know if you were going somewhere with, because you were asking me about the therapist I went to.
No. Yeah. Well, and I wanted to, I want to go back to what she said. I just say too, like, to me, I think that's really tricky. Like, so we've talked about this before. Trauma, when you think about trauma, I like that metaphor that we found once upon a time that, if your brain is like a factory, its job is to take an event that happened in your life and process it and turn it into a memory. That's the factory's job, right? And a trauma, whatever it may be, is simply just an event that's too large for that factory to process and turn into emotion, right? And there's a few different ways of treating that, but my thing is like, well, if everything becomes traumatic, then damn, how can you even function? Like if every event or multiple events in your life are so traumatic, then how are you even able to cope with those things? And is somebody trying to convince you that you've been traumatized?
That's what I kind of worry about with our field sometimes.
Right. How many times have they pulled out an ACEs study, the Adverse Childhood Events Checklist, and thrown that at you? And this is like a standard training, or you go to a presentation and everybody hands the ACEs out, and I'm like, okay, I know where this is going, and then you answer. I answer it fake because I'm like, this is stupid, and then they get it, and he's like, did you know that everyone in here tested positive for a history of trauma? I'm like, yeah, of course. No shit, lady. Life sucks sometimes. Okay. Emphasis on the sometimes, right? We've all felt some of those things. That doesn't mean we're diagnosable with PTSD. So relax. And it doesn't mean I have any trauma to bring to the table and share with you right now either. Like that has to be something that's impairing my ability currently. If everything's a trauma, well, then nothing's a trauma, I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due. Something major has to be there to start impacting your life in a way that it impairs you.
And not just the major event by itself, right? It's that second part you just said.
Right.
The degree to which it impacts you.
Well, where she goes on this, because I think I listened to this, but I didn't watch this. I wanted to check this out. Let's see what she has to say here.
Money, and how did he get there? How did he go from a dashing prince that we all were wondering about to a person that is petty and talking about bridesmaid dresses in his book, taking down his father and his brother and his little niece because she cried over a bridesmaid dress? How did he do this? And how can he do this and actually think that it's okay? Well, therapy. Prince Harry wants us all to know that he's in therapy and it's rendering him a better human being. Hear it from his own words.
It's Prince Harry's therapy that he's sharing with the world. He crosses his arms and taps his hand on his chest while he closes his eyes and moves them back and forth. He's instructed to visualize negative thoughts. The therapy is called EMDR, which stands for eye movement, desensitization,
this
and
is from Inside
reprocessing therapy.
Edition.
Prince Harry is raw and open in this moment, and he says it's the kind of therapy that he has always wanted to try. And since starting it, he's felt calmer and like he's found this new sense of strength. He wants to share that with the world. And that's part of the reason why he's opening up this morning.
It's Prince Harry like we've never seen him. The Duke of Sussex is opening up about his life and telling Oprah Winfrey how therapy has helped him get to a better place.
Eyes, yes. This makes me a better person somehow. I love how that person says, it's Prince Harry like we've never seen him. Side note, it's Prince Harry like we've never wanted to see him. He now seems like a weak man, and we all feel that and we understand that. And again, it is not just reserved to him. That's just a recent cultural example. You might even understand this on a personal level. I mean, for me, I had a family member who began going to therapy. She was attending therapy. It was couples therapy. And she would tell us that, it was good because they were able to discuss how to better.
Okay, hold on a second. So before we get further into that, one thing I was going to say about this, now our loving friend Matt Barnes might take issue with this because isn't he like an EMDR specialist? Yeah.
And so is like 20% of our therapists.
Now here, I just wanted to say one thing on this before we continue, because I think we've talked about this before. I don't pretend to know like I know anything about EMDR because I don't do it, right? And so the stuff that Prince Harry was doing, and sometimes there's lights involved and tapping and stuff like that. Those I've always kind of said, oh, that's witchcraft, but I'm saying that very jokingly.
Tongue in cheek.
Right. I'm not being serious. I know it's not witchcraft. And to its credit, this is the California Evidence-Based Clearinghouse. So this is a clearinghouse that you can look at if you wanted to look at the strength of a type of program and look at the evidence behind it. What they've done is they've consolidated all of the research, okay, and said, hey, here's how strong this is. Side note, I searched equestrian therapy and it's not even in this database. I don't know how much that matters.
Oh, that's weird.
I know. Moving on. So just
half our audience.
Yeah, they shut it off, eyes rolling again. So just to give you guys an idea of the scale, okay? So here's the scale. 1 being well supported, 5 being concerning. And well supported by research evidence means multiple site replication and follow-up, at least 2 rigorous randomized control trials with non-overlapping analytical samples that were carried out in usual care or practice settings have found the program to be superior to an appropriate comparison program and outcomes specified in the criteria for that particular topic area. In at least one of the RCTs, the program is shown to have a sustained effect at least 1 year beyond the end of treatment when compared to a control group. The RCTs have been reported in published, peer-reviewed literature. Outcome measures must be reliable and valid and administered consistently and accurately across all subjects. Now, that's just kind of the preface. There's more. You guys can feel free to read that to your heart's content.
It's saying it's legit.
It's legit. So this is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Really quick. This is the target population, adults like Prince Harry who have experienced trauma and may experience post-traumatic stress disorder, post-traumatic stress, phobias, and other mental health disorders. EMDR therapy is an 8-phase psychotherapy treatment that was originally designed to alleviate symptoms of trauma. During EMDR trauma processing phases, guided by standardized procedures, the client attends to emotionally disturbing material in brief sequential doses that include the client's beliefs, emotions, and body sensations associated with the traumatic event while simultaneously focusing on external stimulus. And you can go kind of on and on and on. Anyway, this program, according to this evidence-based clearinghouse, was rated a 1, which is as supported as you can get. In other words, it is legit. So the here's the thing I think people have problems with. It's Prince Harry. Prince. Okay? A lot of people look at this and say, bro, what kind of problems could you possibly have? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know what's going on in Prince Harry's life.
That's not really a fair take.
It isn't. I'm saying that's why Candace and other people are likely struggling with this.
Sure.
It's like, wait a minute, homie. Like, hold on.
You're literally royalty. Yeah, they're looking at him that way.
Right.
Like,
what could you have possibly experienced in your life that requires that you have a post-traumatic stress disorder diagnosis and need EMDR in the first place?
Side note, he is a ginger.
Oh, yeah.
It's rough growing up no matter your socioeconomic status.
That is true. Yeah. That is true. So I don't know. I don't know what his history is like. I have no clue what that guy's gone through. I'm saying that being actual royalty and a multimillionaire and having Netflix deals and being on Inside Edition, I think rubs people the wrong way when you're starting to talk about trauma, right? And to me, again, this goes back to the idea that, look, if everything's trauma, then nothing's trauma. What about the people who have had legitimate traumatic experiences, right? And like, I think they get lost in the mix because everything's on the table now, and nobody who's actually experienced something super dramatic and painful and horrific in their life deserve, and it's not about spotlight. It's about, who's appropriate for this type of therapy and who's not, and so just diagnosing somebody with PTSD and giving them an EMDR for who knows what reason, which I'm not saying is what happened with Prince Harry. I'm saying that's the perception. Yeah, I think that rubs people the wrong way.
So it's the putting everything and anything under the umbrella of trauma for the sake of either diagnosis or treatment or generating a client base or, keeping people coming back. It's like any and all those things. You said no, not the spotlight, but like in it metaphorically, it takes the spotlight off of diagnosable, genuine trauma.
Yes. And I don't get the fascination with it either. It worries me a little bit. And I'll give you 3 examples, okay? Real quick. So
with EMDR or with trauma?
Trauma.
Okay.
So I did drug court for 6 years for mostly females addicted to heroin.
Oh yeah,
right?
When you did that.
And pregnant or having recently given birth and children taken out of their custody and they're earning their children back, right? And one of my clients was court ordered into trauma therapy. Court ordered. Now, here's the weird thing about that. She had already completed EMDR with a previous therapist prior to starting drug court. And for all intents and purposes, she resolved all of her trauma. But because she had a history, which was in my assessment because it's just a history, the judge court ordered her into that.
Wait, so you did an assessment. In your assessment, you picked out the trauma, and based on that's what the judge based it on?
Right, but okay. I made no recommendations for it.
It was just in your assessment.
It was just in my assessment, and her caseworker read it, and then off to the races. And later on down the road, she was pretty honest with me, and she said that having been forced to go in there and talk about it again was worse than it happening in the first place. I don't know if that's true. That's just what she told me. Okay, and if I'm believing her, then being forced by the judicial system right. when you're newly into abstinence, yeah, and your kids out of your care, and they send you into there, and now you have to talk about, she was raped by family members, and having to talk about with a bunch of strangers when you'd already gone through that,
legally compelled
right.
to do that,
right? Otherwise, you don't get your kid back. Okay.
She might have a point, dude.
Okay. Example number 2. I used to be a clinical quality supervisor, and I managed a team, and there's a really good evidence-based program, which let me look in this clearinghouse. This might help us. It's called Seeking Safety. Seeking Safety. Let's see what this says. Okay, adult
Seeking
version.
Safety.
Okay, rating 2, second best. Okay, if it's even under EMDR.
Oh wow.
Now, Seeking Safety. This is cognitive behavioral, present focused coping skills therapy to help people attain safety from trauma and or substance use. Very CBT because it's present oriented and it's action oriented, all focused on coping, right? And there's another one in here. Let me see if it was in here. TREM, trauma recovery empowerment, which is 3. Okay. So, both of them are targeted at trauma. The difference though is that TREM, okay, this trauma recovery and empowerment model, so it has less research to support it. Seeking Safety, we were doing it 2 times a week. We could have done it 3 times a week, but the third one was TREM. And so the more Seeking Safety, the better. The higher the dose, the better. And the research supports that, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, why are we doing TREM that has less research on it? And why are we not doing Seeking Safety that has more research behind it? If we have an option to do 3 times a week group, why not do this?
So it was twice a week Seeking Safety, once a week TREM.
Correct. And TREM was not being done to fidelity, by the way. So I asked that, and the therapist said something that was really fascinating to me. They said, well, we really like TREM. Like, hold on, you really like TREM? You like TREM. Oh, okay. So not that this is benefiting clients. You like TREM. You know what the difference between the two is? Seeking Safety does not allow you to talk about your trauma. It doesn't, because it's CBT. You don't go back and talk about it.
You saying the therapists are vicariously feeling like something's happening in session once they get to hear the client disclose it?
I wish it was vicariously. I think it's voyeuristic is what I think it is. I think you, for whatever reason, want to hear somebody else's trauma.
Like trauma porn.
Why? If it's unnecessary, why? EMDR requires that you hear the narrative at one point, right? That you're going through this and you talk it through, and then you're guiding them.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it wasn't that way.
And TREM does that as well, right? So it's like, well, hold on. Why do you need to hear about their trauma? And here's example number 3. We were at a training a week ago, and somebody was talking about CBT, and I'm not going to name who, but they said CBT does not care about your trauma history. And I've always struggled with that. You, the clinician, has always struggled with that. What about the client? Have they always struggled with that? They're not telling you their deepest, darkest secrets about this? CBT has a gargantuan mountain of evidence behind it for treating trauma, but it doesn't care about the history. It cares. And look, for a PTSD diagnosis to happen, and we can say this until the cows, wait, is it till the cows come home?
Yeah, that's right.
Chickens come home to roost?
I think cows.
Okay,
yeah.
We can say it for as long as we need to, scream it from the rooftops. You do need a history. You need an event to have happened to you that fits in this category of trauma. Got it. You also need symptoms, current symptoms, and those symptoms have to be great enough that you have impairment. And if you don't have those three things, then you don't have PTSD. So if you're treating the symptoms and you alleviate the symptoms, now you no longer have impairment. And what does the history even matter? Now, look, in terms of the trauma treatment, yeah, sometimes you need to dig a little bit deeper and maybe some EMDR, some TREM is necessary. But why not start at the path of least resistance and see how the client responds before amping it up? Why do you need to hear somebody's trauma history?
Like the lowest
why is it
dose,
necessary?
Right? Like lowest dose of treatment, like whatever the least invasive.
Yeah. Why do you need to hear that? I don't get that. Somebody tell me why you need to hear that.
Don't you think it's because the therapist feels like they need a foothold on what's happening? Like I almost wonder if like therapists maybe have a idealized image of what they're bringing to the table without recognizing that if you're achieving alleviation of symptoms, that's all you need. That's all you need. You don't need to.
Yeah, I do. I think that the fear is misguidedly, they think that simplifies the work that we do. That
talking about trauma.
Yes, it simplifies the work that we do by simply helping them deal with symptoms and manage symptoms, right? That in addition to, and it's not just symptom management. I mean, in CBT, we're reframing the way they think about these things, but I don't need to know what happened to them. I never need to know. I think they like the idea of Lifetime movies or popular series where you have a therapist and a client, and the client's breaking down and telling you, all these horrible things that happen to them. And then after that, there's a breakthrough. Everybody wants a breakthrough. Have you ever had a breakthrough in a session? I don't think I've ever had a breakthrough.
I'd need that defined.
Mine's a slow burn is how I define it. Okay. And by the time it happens, I don't even know where the bridge was crossed that they started to move into Functionville. I don't know where that is.
I think that the term breakthrough gets conflated with just a dramatic manifestation of emotion. Like it feels significant to the therapist.
Yeah.
When the client has a moment, and that's not to take away those moments, but like that's not necessarily indicative of progress.
Right. My counter to that is you are the one who are simplifying our work. That I can just measure progress of a client's their progress through treatment based on the number of tears they shed in my session, and that they have a breakthrough moment and then treatment's over. I don't even need it anymore. That seems really simple, like to get a client to get into that position, right? Like, and again, I'm really leveraging a lot of trust and relationship with them. If I were to do that, I could do it, if I wanted to, but I don't do that. To me, it's complex when I walk them through 30 behavior chains, multiple cost benefit analyses, tons of problem solving to get them to the point that, maybe 20 sessions later or something like that they're thinking a little bit more clear. That's way more complex than having a breakthrough. You know what I mean? But I think people like that romanticized
term for stuff.
That romanticized version of therapy, which I just don't think exists. It's just not realistic. And the more you try to do that, I think it's worse for the client.
Do you think it maybe has something to do with like that? So there have been times when a client of mine will really open up. It'll be a heavy emotional experience. And I can immediately tell that client is like I don't know. It's whatever form of like therapeutic alliance or bonding seems to accelerate. Like when you're there for somebody during a tough time, then they seem to really like latch on in a good way. And like it increases their trust. They feel more comfortable with you. Mm-hmm. They were able to talk about something and get something off their chest or whatever we're defining as a breakthrough. But I think it's really just the feel goods that come from being able to connect with somebody emotionally, not necessarily indicative of change.
Okay.
Like it feels good.
But you're talking about enhancing the therapeutic relationship.
Right. I think that is what feels like, it feels like change because you have this connection in this moment. Mm-hmm. And so like, does it actually lead to objective alleviation of symptoms out there in the real world? Or did it just like you and I had a moment, you opened up, tears fell, you felt safe. I was of some comfort to you and it felt good, thus bonding you to me, not necessarily one way or the other as far as like output out there.
Yes, I think that is powerful. Okay. But you, the professional, you, the clinician, you have a responsibility to use that power in a manner that is going to help the client accelerate their emotional well-being. So really all you're talking about is trust development there. Okay.
Yeah.
Think about we talked about trust before. It's kind of you have to demonstrate as my therapist trustworthy qualities, right? And then I see those trustworthy qualities, whatever those may be. And then as a result of that, I make myself, sorry for the V word, vulnerable to you. Okay. So I share information with you that maybe I haven't shared with other people. And maybe I get teary-eyed in front of you. Okay. So now you could use that to hurt me now. When I say vulnerable, I'm saying you're opening yourself up for either this is going to strengthen the relationship or they're going to use it to harm me. Because you could just as easily, if they're saying something to you and they're crying, you go, pussy. You can say something like that to them and fracture the therapeutic relationship completely, right?
Yeah.
And hurt them pretty dramatically if you were to do that, right? Maybe even get into some physical brawl or something.
Yeah.
And I know you didn't do that, but instead you harness that and you say, oh, great. Now our trust went from this to this because that's how trust is formed. That's how the whole trust bond is formed. Like, you're trustworthy. I make myself vulnerable. You take that vulnerability. You don't abuse it. You strengthen the relationship between us. And then we keep doing that on and up and up and up. And then we become more trustworthy. Then I harness that trust and I say, okay, based on this trust, here's my prescription for you. My prescription for you is, tell me about how this manifested last week when you got in a fight with your girlfriend and you threw a bottle against the wall. Tell me what was going through your head. What was the thought process? I don't want to hear about 20 years ago. I don't care about that stuff. Okay. I don't say that. I never have said that to a client ever, by the way.
Even if that's a life history factor that might have influenced their current lifestyle factors that led to whatever series of events led to him smashing the bottle against the wall. Even if that exists, you don't need to have that discussion to solve the here and now.
I want to say, now look, they can incorporate that into a discussion about that. So if they say, well, she said something to me and it just reminded me of how my mom used to treat me. I'm making this up as I go, but and I was thinking, I'm never going to let women talk to me this way. And, she deserves to be put in her place. And if she keeps this up, I'm going to do this, that, or the other. And emotion, I'm like, okay, great. All right, let's talk about that. Now, tell me what corresponding emotions you had, right? Then they tell me their emotions. Then I say, okay, what'd you do? Well, I pushed her and I threw a bottle against the wall. And what were the consequences of that? Well, she called the police and okay. And on we go. Right. And then I go back into that. I was like, oh, great. We have this full analysis of the situation. Now let's pinpoint where the best point of intervention would have been here. Okay. And then I try to figure that out. Was it situational? Was it cognitive? Was it emotional? And then guess what you and I do? You and I, we say, all right, cool. Now look, so we've decided that this was a cognitive one, that you need to think a little bit better. What are some replacement thoughts? And then we say, okay, here's a situation that could likely lead into that. How are you going to incorporate this in future things? And then you and I make a plan. And then you take it out of my session and incorporate that into your real life. And I never needed to discuss what happened to you in the past. So I'm saying to this day, I have not heard a therapist that has told me that they say, you know what, them not talking about their trauma history really set them back. Them not telling me their whole horrible, knockdown, drag out, ooey gooey, every detail about what happened to them, that really made them regress in therapy. Have you ever heard that ever?
No. Well, are you saying has a therapist uttered those words,
or at least paraphrased it in that?
Well,
or is it always about the therapist? It's always been a therapist saying, I don't like it when my client doesn't talk about trauma.
I mean, yeah, I guess so. I mean, the closest that I think I've come is when people will say this person's closed off, they're walled off. They haven't let me in. I've heard therapists say versions of that.
Which I want to say, so what? It's not required. If their symptoms reduce and they start being more functional, it's none of your business what happened to them in the past. It is none of your business.
You know what? That actually is a lot of the value I found when I was talking to that Larry Jacobson guy about that. Like, other than telling the story of when I passed out in the lunch line when I was 5, because it's funny. Yeah. Like, other than that, it didn't get into any history of mine.
Yeah.
There was plenty of nonsense that I've been through growing up that I could have talked about. I didn't though, and it was very non-invasive. And again, it's a completely different type of therapy. He was kind of giving me suggestions that I was then creating mental images in my mind, but I didn't have to say anything.
Well, right.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, I kind of have to know the history's there. So I'm doing an assessment and the client tells me, oh yeah, I was sexually abused by family members. That's it. That's all I need. I don't need to go in depth into that.
No play by play.
No.
Right.
No. And I'm just, so look, here's what I'd say. If you're a clinician, and look, I'm not saying this to be critical. I'm genuinely, this is more about clients and not us.
Yeah,
and
right. Yes.
This is not. So what I'm saying is just check your intention. Okay. Nobody goes into this field trying to hurt clients.
We should have led with that, bro. Because that's what we're saying.
Right.
It's about check your intention.
Check your intention. Yeah. Nobody goes into this field to hurt people. I know that. I never have believed that. Okay. Are there dicks everywhere? Of course. Some therapists are wildly unethical. I understand that, but I think everybody comes in with the best intentions. What I would say though is also check like your reasoning on why you find it necessary to hear a client's trauma history. Why is that necessary? Justify that to me clinically as to why it's necessary to move them forward. And have you tried a less invasive attempt to work on that trauma, meaning cognitive behavioral therapy, which doesn't care about your history, as if that's a bad thing. Okay. Like, I mean, imagine you can go and alleviate your symptoms without having to give them a breakdown of all of your history. I'll take that all day.
Right.
Okay. I don't have to tell you my whole life story and all my symptoms will go away. Sign me up, right, dude. You know what I mean? So that's what I would say. And look, I just say, if that's your belief, that's your belief and you need to own that. That may not necessarily translate into what's best for the client. And if you're truly, truly invested in the client moving forward, why not? This isn't a criticism against you. This is just an appeal to why not try something like that instead? You know what I mean? Or wait for clients who are significantly bad enough that need that type of therapy, because that does exist. There are clients who do need to go through a narrative. I totally understand.
And there's clients that they want to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
It should never be, though. Ever. Your treatment plan should never, ever be based on, because I don't like that.
Therapist-centered treatment.
Right, because I don't like that. Cognitive behavioral therapy doesn't care about your history, and that's never set well with me. I don't give a shit what doesn't sit well with you. You're not the client. You're the clinician. Like, that's not your job to care about what sits well with you or not. What's best for the client? That's the question. It just drives me nuts. Like when those things come up, it needs to be taken seriously. That's all I'm asking. Take client care seriously. So we'll probably be raked over the coals for that.
We will. That's cool. Yeah.
But Candace, give us a shout out. Okay. I think, are we kind of on her side? No, we're not totally against it. Therapy's not ruining Western civilization.
No, it's not ruining Western civilization, but the points she was making aren't completely without merit. There's some backing to what she's saying.
One more thing I would say about this is compared to Western civilization, meaning that we're like a first world, place or whatever. I would imagine, I don't know, maybe this is another podcast. I just would imagine that the rate of PTSD, depression, anxiety, all the rest of it in a third world country is incredibly lower than ours, right? I would never, ever change places with those people in a third world country to just not have emotional problems. So if that's our problems that we need to deal with, I don't know if it's ruining us necessarily. I do want to move away from kind of cliches and really give help to people who need it the most, not who we've somehow convinced that they have a problem. You should never try to convince a client they have a problem. That is not your job.
Yeah, comes right back to the old school social work ethic of start where the client is.
Right. So, okay. I feel like you can go on and on about this. Huh? Okay. Good place to end, though?
I think so.
Okay. I look forward to your comments about telling me what a jerk I am and what a nice guy Jeff is. That seems how it always turns out. So till next time, folks, we'll see you then.